The crimson wings of supremacy, the crimson glow of distant stars painted the hull of Kepler Station as Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The mining station orbited a lifeless asteroid belt, far from Earth's protective embrace, but it had become home to 3,000 humans who called this remote outpost their sanctuary. Sarah had commanded Kepler Station for 7 years, watching countless supply ships come and go, but she had never seen anything that made her blood run cold, like the sensor readings flickering across her tablet. "Captain, you need to see this." Marcus Rodriguez, the station's chief engineer, rushed into the observation lounge, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. His dark eyes reflected the concern that had been growing among the crew for the past hour. Marcus had served alongside Sarah since the station's construction, and she had never seen him this shaken. Sarah turned from the viewport, setting down her cup with steady hands despite the tremor of fear beginning to build in her chest. "Show me what we're dealing with, Marcus." The engineer activated the main display screen, and Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. The image showed a massive vessel approaching their position, its design unlike anything in human records. The ship stretched nearly 3 kilometers in length, its hull a deep crimson that seemed to absorb the surrounding starlight. Most striking were the enormous wing-like extensions that swept back from the main body, giving the vessel the appearance of some cosmic predator soaring through the void. "Long-range sensors picked it up 6 hours ago," Marcus explained, his voice tight with worry. "It's moving at speeds that should be impossible for something that size. Our computer estimates it's carrying enough firepower to crack a moon in half." Sarah studied the approaching vessel, her military training taking over despite the overwhelming odds. The ship's design was both beautiful and terrifying, its smooth curves suggesting advanced technology far beyond human capabilities. The wing structures weren't just decorative, they pulsed with energy signatures that made their sensors scream warnings about weapon systems beyond their understanding. "Any communication attempts?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "They've been broadcasting on all frequencies for the past 20 minutes, Marcus replied, pulling up the decoded message. "It's not exactly what you'd call friendly." The translation appeared on screen, and Sarah felt her heart sink as she read the words that would change everything for the humans of Kepler Station. "Attention, primitive species. You orbit within the domain of Emperor Zephyros of the Vulcarian Empire. Your presence pollutes sacred space. Surrender immediately or face the crimson wings of judgment. You have 1 standard hour to evacuate ORB destroyed. This is the only warning you will receive." "Primitive species," Sarah muttered, her jaw clenching with determination rather than fear. "Well, they're about to learn something about this primitive species." Marcus shook his head, gesturing toward the tactical display. "Sarah, look at this thing. It's conquered 47 star systems according to our database. Every species that's encountered it has either surrendered or been wiped out completely. The Vulcarians don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they've never been defeated." "There's a first time for everything," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the steel that had earned her command of the station. She had grown up on the rough mining colonies of the Outer Rim, where survival meant fighting for every breath of air and every drop of water. The attitude that had kept her alive in those harsh environments wasn't about to abandon her now. "You can't be serious about fighting that thing," Marcus said, his engineering mind automatically calculating the impossible odds. "Our defensive systems are designed to handle pirates and asteroid collisions, not military vessels that could level entire planets. Sarah moved to the communication console, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced efficiency. Open a channel to all station personnel. This is Captain Chen speaking. Her voice echoed through every corridor, every work bay, every living space on Kepler Station. As many of you have probably heard by now, we have visitors. They're not the friendly kind, and they've given us an hour to pack up and leave the home we've built together. She paused, looking out at the stars that had watched over their small community for so many years. I've been thinking about what makes us human, what separates us from every other species we've encountered in our short time among the stars. It's not our technology, because plenty of civilizations are more advanced than us. It's not our numbers, because we're still just getting started out here. What makes us special is that we don't know when to quit. Marcus found himself nodding, despite his fears, remembering the countless times he had watched humans solve impossible problems through sheer stubborn determination. Our ancestors looked up at the night sky from Earth and decided they belonged among the stars, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. They built ships when they barely understood the physics involved. They traveled to worlds that should have killed them and found ways to thrive. They faced challenges that would have broken other species and came back stronger. The communication system crackled with responses from across the station. Engineers reported to their posts, security teams checked their equipment, and families moved to the protected areas deep within the station's core. Fear was present in every voice, but so was something else, the unwillingness to surrender that had carried humanity from a single world to the stars. Emperor Zephyros thinks we'll run because his ship is bigger and his weapons are stronger, Sarah said, watching the crimson vessel grow larger on their screens. He's conquered 47 systems because he's never met anyone crazy enough to fight back against impossible odds. Today, that changes. Marcus was already pulling up technical specifications, his engineer's mind shifting from despair to problem-solving mode. If we're really doing this, we need to understand what we're up against. The energy readings from those wing structures are off the charts, but there's something interesting about the design. What do you mean? Sarah asked, moving to look over his shoulder at the detailed scans. Look at the way those wings connect to the main hull, Marcus said, highlighting specific areas on the display. They're not just weapons platforms. They're integral to the ship's power distribution system. The entire vessel is designed around channeling energy through those wing structures. Sarah studied the technical readout, her tactical mind beginning to see possibilities where others saw only destruction. You're thinking like an engineer, Marcus. What happens if those wings get damaged? In theory, it would disrupt the entire power grid, Marcus replied, his excitement growing as the implications became clear. But Sarah, those wings are protected by energy shields that could stop anything in our arsenal. Our mining lasers might as well be flashlights against that kind of defensive technology. Then we don't attack the shields directly, Sarah said, a plan beginning to form in her mind. We attack the ship the way humans have always fought when we're outgunned and outmatched. We get creative. Across the void, aboard the massive Vulcarian flagship Crimson Sovereign, Emperor Zephyros stood in the center of his command chamber, his forearms crossed behind his back in the traditional pose of imperial authority. His skin held the deep purple hue of Vulcarian nobility, and the ceremonial wings grafted to his shoulders marked him as supreme ruler of an empire that spanned countless worlds. Admiral Korith, report on the primitive colony's response, the Emperor commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. Admiral Korith, a battle-scarred veteran of dozens of conquest campaigns, approached with the measured steps of a career military officer. His own natural wings, broader and more practical than the Emperor's ceremonial ones, bore the scars of actual combat. "They have not responded to our ultimatum, my Emperor. Our sensors indicate increased activity throughout their installation, but no signs of evacuation." Curious, Emperor Zephyros mused, moving to the massive viewport that dominated the forward wall of the command chamber. Through the transparent barrier, he could see the small human station growing larger as they approached. In 47 conquered systems, no species has ever failed to respond to the sight of the crimson wings. What makes these humans different? Perhaps they are too primitive to understand the threat we represent, Admiral Korath suggested, though something in his experienced warrior's instincts suggested otherwise. He had fought against many species, and those who failed to surrender immediately often proved to be the most dangerous opponents. Emperor Zephyros spread his forearms in a gesture of imperial confidence. "Then we shall educate them. Prepare the wing cannons for a demonstration strike. Target their outer structures, but leave the main habitat areas intact for now. When they see the power of Volcarian technology, their primitive courage will crumble." The massive wing structures of the Crimson Sovereign began to glow with accumulated energy. Power conduits throughout the ship channeling devastating force toward the weapon systems that had laid waste to entire fleets. The sight had broken the will of countless enemies, and Emperor Zephyros expected this encounter to follow the same pattern as all the others. He was about to learn that humans had a tendency to exceed expectations, especially when those expectations involved surrender. Back on Kepler Station, Sarah Chen stood in the command center surrounded by her crew, watching the alien vessel's wings begin to charge with destructive energy. Around her, men and women who had spent their lives mining asteroids and maintaining equipment prepared to face an enemy that should have been impossible to defeat. "Marcus, how long until your plan is ready?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the approaching destruction. "Give me 10 more minutes," Marcus replied, his hands flying over the engineering controls. "But Sarah, even if this works, we're still talking about taking on a ship that's conquered half the galaxy with mining equipment and maintenance drones." Sarah smiled, the expression holding all the confidence that had carried humanity from Earth to the stars. "Marcus, we're humans. Taking on impossible odds with inadequate equipment is what we do best. It's time to show Emperor Zephyros why his 47-system winning streak is about to come to an end." The crimson wings of the alien vessel reached full charge, ready to deliver the devastating blow that had broken so many other species. But this time, they faced an enemy that had never learned the meaning of surrender. And that difference was about to change the course of galactic history. When human ingenuity soars the first blast from the Crimson Sovereign's wing cannons lit up the void like a miniature star being born. The energy beam, wider than most human ships, struck the outer mining platform of Kepler Station with devastating force. Metal vaporized instantly, and the shockwave rippled through the station's structure, sending tremors through every corridor and compartment. Emperor Zephyros watched from his command chamber as the demonstration of power played out exactly as it had countless times before. The outer platform, which had taken the humans months to construct, ceased to exist in less than 3 seconds. Surely now these primitive beings would understand the futility of resistance. "Send the surrender demand again," the Emperor commanded, his forearms folded in satisfaction. "Inform them that was merely a warning shot. The next blast will target their main habitat areas. But the response that came back from Kepler Station was not what Emperor Zephyros expected. Crimson Sovereign. This is Captain Sarah Chen of Kepler Station. Thank you for the demonstration. We've seen what your weapons can do to a stationary target. Now, let us show you what human ingenuity can do when we're motivated. Admiral Korath's battle-scarred features twisted into a frown of confusion. Emperor, I have never encountered such a response. Their outer defenses have been obliterated, yet they speak as if they hold some advantage. Impossible, Emperor Zephyros replied, though a tiny seed of uncertainty began to sprout in his mind. No primitive species possesses technology capable of threatening the Crimson Wings. Continue the attack pattern. Target their communication arrays next. What the Emperor didn't know was that Marcus Rodriguez had spent the last 10 minutes implementing the most audacious plan in human history. Instead of conventional weapons, he had reprogrammed every mining drone in the station's inventory, turning peaceful excavation equipment into a swarm of improvised weapons. Sarah, the drones are ready, Marcus announced from his engineering station, sweat beading on his forehead despite the climate control systems. But I have to warn you, this is completely theoretical. We're using electromagnetic pulse generators designed for asteroid mining to try and disrupt alien technology we don't even understand. Marcus, sometimes the best plans are the ones that sound completely insane, Sarah replied, her fingers hovering over the launch controls. Every great human achievement started with someone saying, "This might be crazy enough to work." She opened a communication channel to the entire station. All hands, prepare for drone deployment. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their ship. We're trying to prove that human creativity can overcome any challenge. Launch in 3:2. 1:40-7 mining drones, each no larger than a small spacecraft, erupted from hidden launch bays throughout Kepler Station. To the sensors of the Crimson Sovereign, they appeared to be nothing more than debris from the destroyed platform, drifting aimlessly through space. Emperor, we're detecting small objects moving away from the human station, Admiral Korath reported, studying his tactical displays. They appear to be fragments from our previous attack. Ignore them, Emperor Zephyros commanded with imperial disdain. Focus on the main target. These humans will learn the price of defying the Vulcarian Empire. But Marcus had programmed the drones with a level of cunning that would have impressed human military strategists throughout history. They moved in seemingly random patterns, using their mining protocols to analyze the alien ship's structure while appearing to drift harmlessly through space. Sarah, the drones are transmitting structural data, Marcus reported, his excitement growing as information flooded his screens. The wing connection points are even more vulnerable than we thought. Those massive structures are held in place by gravitational field generators, not physical joints. What does that mean for us? Sarah asked, watching the tactical display as the alien ship charged its weapons for another devastating attack. It means that if we can disrupt the gravitational fields with a coordinated electromagnetic pulse, those wings might detach from the main hull, Marcus explained, his engineering mind racing through calculations. But Sarah, we'd need to hit multiple points simultaneously with precise timing. One mistake and the drones will be vaporized. Sarah looked around the command center at the faces of her crew. Engineers, miners, technicians, and support staff who had never trained for combat but were willing to risk everything for their home among the stars. This was humanity at its finest. Ordinary people rising to extraordinary challenges through sheer determination and ingenuity. Do it, Sarah commanded. Show them what happens when humans refuse to give up. The mining drones suddenly changed course, their movement patterns shifting from random drift to coordinated attack formation. Aboard the Crimson Sovereign, alarms began blaring as the ship's sensors finally recognized the threat. Emperor, those debris fragments are actually some form of automated attack craft, Admiral Korath announced, his voice tight with surprise. They're moving toward the wing connection points with obvious hostile intent. Emperor Zephyros stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. No species has ever identified the wing connection points as a vulnerability. Our engineers specifically designed those systems to be undetectable. They're using some form of primitive scanning technology we don't recognize, Admiral Korath replied, studying the sensor readings. Their approach patterns suggest they understand our ship's structural weaknesses better than our own technical staff. For the first time in his 47 conquests, Emperor Zephyros felt a flutter of uncertainty. These humans were doing something that no other species had ever attempted. They were thinking like predators instead of prey. The mining drones reached their target positions, surrounding the massive wing structures of the Crimson Sovereign like a swarm of angry insects. Marcus had programmed them to strike simultaneously, their electromagnetic pulse generators working in perfect coordination. All drones in position, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Sarah, if this works, we'll have maybe 60 seconds before their backup systems compensate. If it doesn't work, then we'll have proven that humans never go down without a fight, Sarah finished. Execute the attack. 47 electromagnetic pulses fired simultaneously, creating a web of energy that wrapped around the Crimson Sovereign's wing structures. The alien ship's gravitational field generators, designed to maintain the wing connections, suddenly found themselves fighting against coordinated interference from technology they had never encountered. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The massive crimson wings, each larger than most human space stations, began to shudder and twist as their gravitational anchors destabilized. Aboard the alien vessel, emergency alarms screamed warnings as power systems fluctuated wildly. Wing connection integrity failing, Admiral Korath announced, his voice filled with the shock of witnessing the impossible. Emperor, we're losing. Structural cohesion in the primary weapon systems. Emperor Zephyros watched in stunned silence as his invincible flagship began to tear itself apart. The wing structures that had intimidated 47 different species were separating from the main hull, their massive forms tumbling away into space like discarded pieces of a broken toy. But Sarah Chen wasn't finished. As the alien ship struggled with its structural damage, she opened a communication channel that would be heard across both vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen to all members of the Vulcarian Empire. You came here expecting to find a primitive species that would surrender at the first show of force. Instead, you found humans. We don't surrender, we don't give up, and we don't back down from challenges that seem impossible. She paused, watching as emergency lights flickered across the damaged alien vessel. Your Emperor has conquered 47 star systems because he's never encountered a species stubborn enough to fight back with everything they have. Today, that winning streak ends. Aboard the Crimson Sovereign, Emperor Zephyros stood in his command chamber, staring at the debris field that had once been his mighty weapon wings. For the first time in his long reign, he was seeing his empires. Technology defeated by what his sensors still insisted was primitive equipment. Admiral Korath, the Emperor said quietly, his forearms trembling with a mixture of rage and something he had never experienced before, respect. Send a communication to the human commander. Yes, my emperor. Shall I demand their immediate surrender? No, Emperor Zephyros replied, his gaze fixed on the small human station that had just accomplished the impossible. Request permission to speak with this Captain Chen. I find myself ... curious about these humans. The communication came through to Kepler Station minutes later, and Sarah accepted it with the same steady confidence that had carried her through the battle. Captain Chen, Emperor Zephyros began, his voice carrying a tone of grudging admiration. In 47 conquered systems, no species has ever damaged the Crimson Sovereign. Your tactics were ... unexpected. Your Majesty, Sarah replied with diplomatic courtesy. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you threaten our home, you discover what we're truly capable of achieving. I am beginning to understand this, the Emperor admitted. Tell me, Captain, what would you have done if your attack had failed? Sarah smiled, the expression visible on the communication screen. We would have tried something else, and if that failed, we would have tried again. That's what humans do, Your Majesty. We keep trying until we find a way to succeed. Emperor. Zephyros was quiet for a long moment, processing this concept that was foreign to his imperial experience. Captain Chen, the Vulcarian Empire has ruled through superior force for centuries. We have never encountered a species that viewed defeat as merely the first step toward victory. Then perhaps it's time for the Vulcarian Empire to learn something new, Sarah suggested. Humans have discovered that cooperation often achieves more than conquest. We'd be willing to share our mining techniques and engineering innovations if you're interested in trade rather than domination. The Emperor looked around his damaged command chamber, then at the tactical displays showing his wingless flagship. Admiral Korath, initiate emergency repairs and prepare for departure. We will not be conquering this system today. My Emperor, surely we can still overwhelm their defenses with our remaining weapons, Admiral Korath protested. Admiral, these humans have just taught us that superior technology means nothing if your opponent refuses to accept defeat. Emperor Zephyros replied. They turned mining equipment into weapons that defeated the most advanced military vessel in the galaxy. I suspect that attacking them further would only result in more unpleasant surprises. As the damaged Vulcarian flagship began its withdrawal from the Kepler system, Emperor Zephyros sent one final message to the human station. Captain Chen, the Vulcarian Empire will remember this encounter. You have shown us that there are forces in the universe more powerful than weapons or technology. Perhaps it is time for us to learn about this human concept of cooperation. Sarah watched the alien vessel disappear into hyperspace. Its massive form somehow diminished without the intimidating wings that had terrorized so many other species. Around her, the crew of Kepler Station celebrated their impossible victory, but she was already thinking about the future. Marcus, start preparing detailed technical specifications for our mining innovations, she ordered. Something tells me we're going to have some very interesting trade negotiations in the near future. You really think they'll be back? Marcus asked, still hardly believing they had survived the encounter. Oh, they'll be back, Sarah replied with confidence. But next time, they'll come as partners instead of conquerors. Today, the Vulcarian Empire learned that humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to prove that impossible problems have solutions. And that lesson is going to change everything. In the end, the story of how the alien emperor's ship lost Its wings became more than just a tale of military victory. It became the foundation of a new age of cooperation between species, built on the human principle that no challenge is too great when you refuse to give up and dare to think differently. The Crimson Sovereign had lost its wings, but humanity had gained something far more valuable: the respect of an empire and the beginning of a friendship that would span the stars.